First, let's start with this case. I am a 35-year-old stay-at-home mom with two children, John, a 10-year-old boy, and Ava, an 8-year-old girl. My neighbor, Zoe, who is 42, works full-time and asked me at the beginning of the school year if she could drop off her 9-year-old daughter, Sue, an hour before school started, twice a week. I agreed, happy to lend a hand to a neighbor. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse rather quickly. My kids do not get along well with Sue and view entertaining her as more of an obligation than a fun activity. John and Ava both enjoy outdoor sports, arts, and various active games, while Sue prefers to spend her time glued to her phone. Despite my children trying to engage her occasionally, Sue often pouts when they go off to do their own activities without her. A few weeks into the school year, Zoe called me, expressing concern about my kids walking or biking to school, insisting it was unsafe and asking me to drive Sue instead. I politely declined, explaining that if Sue was responsible enough to have a phone, she should be capable of walking or biking to school safely. A week later, Zoe made another request, this time asking me to cook real sausage for Sue in addition to the vegetarian sausage I prepare for my own children, since my husband and I do not purchase meat. Again, I said no, clarifying that Sue was welcome to eat what I cooked, but if she had specific preferences, she would need to handle it herself. Throughout the first semester, Zoe continued to approach me with various requests. These included things like avoiding songs with inappropriate lyrics, ensuring no more than one child was on the trampoline at a time, and supervising the children constantly while they played outside. Although I consistently refused these requests, Zoe remained polite, often apologizing for bothering me, though she continued to come up with new demands nearly every week. By the end of the semester, I felt it was necessary to address the matter directly. I told her that while I was willing to help by watching Sue, I was not prepared to keep making changes to our family's routines or to inconvenience my children further. I assured her that Sue's safety was never at risk, but if she was dissatisfied, there were other neighbors who might be able to help. Zoe seemed to take this well, and I hoped that would put an end to the frequent requests. On December 20th, after school let out, I asked my kids, "Are you excited for 2.5 weeks with no school?" John's response surprised me. He said, "I'm more excited for 2.5 weeks without Sue." Ava nodded and laughed along. It was heartbreaking to hear that my children were more relieved about having a break from Sue than from school itself. Just a few days ago, Zoe reached out again to thank me for helping during the first semester and asked if I could now watch Sue a few afternoons each week so she could have some personal time. I informed her that this would no longer be possible. I explained that our kids did not get along well, and I was not interested in dealing with additional requests. I thought Zoe might react negatively, but instead, she pleaded with me to watch Sue at least one morning a week. She apologized repeatedly and assured me that I could manage things however I saw fit. This made me feel guilty because it was clear she genuinely needed assistance and didn't seem to know where else to turn. Nevertheless, I told her that while I understood her situation, her apology had come too late, and my decision was final. Both my husband and my children fully support my choice, but some of the other moms in the neighborhood feel differently. They believe I should have been more accommodating, suggesting that I was being selfish and emphasizing that moms should support one another because I might need help someday. This has left me wondering, was my refusal to help Zoe unfair? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You did this to your kids for long enough. No, it is time to prioritize them for a change. But some of the other moms think I should have been more accommodating, saying I'm selfish. Tell them, it is great they are volunteering. You will pass their offer on to Zoe. You're not in the wrong. She is begging. You can parent however you want, just one day a week. You feel bad, say okay, and then fast forward a few weeks, and then it's 2 mornings and 2 afternoons. Zoe needs to find her own daycare. Parenting is hard, and we all could use a break. But the audacity of asking you to take her in addition in the afternoon a couple times, for me, is time as if you aren't dealing with your own kids and hers. I like the request for me time with no reciprocation offered. Then moms help moms, but only if it benefits me. You're not in the wrong. You were kind and generous. Next up, this Christmas we all gathered at my parents' house. I'm a woman in my mid-30s, and my younger sister came along with her husband. They have 2 kids whom I absolutely adore and love to spoil. For Christmas, my mother had specifically requested a heated blanket. Since coordinating shared gifts can often become a bit complicated, I informed both my sister and father that I would be buying the blanket for her. When it came time to open presents, something unexpected happened. My sister and her husband had mistakenly opened the heated blanket. They checked the label and quickly realized that it was meant for my mom. Eventually, they handed it over to her, and we continued opening the rest of the gifts. However, my sister kept expressing disappointment afterward, saying she wished the heated blanket had been for her. She made several remarks about it, clearly fishing for a reaction from me. Now, here's the thing. 2 years ago, my sister repeatedly complained about feeling cold and wanting a heated blanket for Christmas. So I bought her a heated blanket, thinking it would be the perfect gift. Not long after that, she changed her mind and claimed she wasn't cold anymore. Instead, she asked me to return the blanket and buy her a specific shirt. Although it was a hassle to return the blanket, I didn't want any conflict. So I went ahead and got her the shirt for her birthday. Fast forward to this Christmas, my mom graciously let my sister use her new blanket, and every time my sister saw me, she kept gushing about how much she loved it and wished she had one. Eventually, my mom suggested she should ask me for another heated blanket as a gift for her birthday. I ignored the comments at first, but after hearing them multiple times, I finally responded, "You're not getting another blanket from me." At that point, both my sister and mom tried to convince me otherwise. They said it was just a mistake that she didn't keep the original blanket and urged me to give in. My sister acted all excited, as though she had discovered something brand new. Feeling frustrated, I firmly said, "I already gave you a heated blanket when you asked for one, and you decided you didn't want it. If you want another one, you can buy it yourself or ask someone else. I've learned my lesson." I thought the situation had been resolved, but a few days later, my mom told me she was planning to buy a heated blanket for my sister, since according to her, I wasn't going to do it. I confirmed that she was right and asked her to stop bringing it up. Now, I'm wondering if I might be in the wrong here. Am I being unreasonable by holding on to this frustration? Maybe my refusal makes me seem petty because my sister genuinely seemed excited about the blanket she opened by mistake. On the other hand, the main reason I don't want to give her another blanket is that I don't believe she truly appreciates the effort. Given her past behavior, I'm concerned she'll change her mind again, and I'll end up regretting it. Edit. Thank you so much, everyone. I feel incredibly validated right now. As some of you have guessed, this is part of a long-standing pattern of behavior. When situations like this happen repeatedly, and I end up being blamed, I sometimes start questioning whether I'm really in the wrong. I probably have enough stories about my family to fill a whole book, so stay tuned. There's plenty more where this came from. Edit 2. Wow, this post really took off. I wasn't expecting so many responses. I initially wrote the first edit after a few comments, thinking that was all I'd get. Honestly, this whole thing has been fun and cathartic, and it kept me entertained for a couple of hours. I can't reply to everyone anymore, but you're all fantastic and hilarious. As for why my sister can't just buy her own heated blanket, I have no idea. It wasn't some rare or luxury item, and there were plenty of affordable options available before Christmas. As far as I know, there's no rule that says only one family member is allowed to buy a heated blanket. Anyway, this has unintentionally turned into an advertisement for heated blankets. Now go ask your own family to get you one. You know you want to. Let's start judging. Your sister's actions are highly suspicious. She knew what gift you were giving your mom. You told her beforehand. She conveniently didn't read the gift tag, opened the present, and miraculously discovered the blanket. Lovely. She finally gave the blanket to your mom, so she was reluctant to give the gift to its intended recipient. Shameful. She tried to make you feel sorry for her because the blanket wasn't for her. Of course it wasn't. She's quite happy taking your mom's new blanket when she visits. She's doubling down on the guilt, trying to get you to buy her one. What a cheek. But you already got her one previously, at her request. Then she wanted something else, so it was exchanged. Why should you be expected to buy another one? Anyone who believes that opening someone else's gift coughs by mistake should get to keep it is delusional. Wouldn't that set the precedent for a first-come, first-served basis for who gets what? Yup, delusional. Your sister sounds fickle and extremely entitled. You're not in the wrong. Your sister sounds like a 4-year-old. Sounds like your mother let her get away with this childish behavior way too much when you were both children, and she never grew out of it. So she opens someone else's gift, uses it, and expects to just keep it? Doesn't get her way, and now her only option is for you to buy her yet another blanket. Is she incapable of buying her own bedding? Why do you have to buy her something just because she wants it? Y'all seem way too old to still be giving each other birthday gifts anyway. At some point, you have to learn to be adults. She's not 5 based on your post, if not her behavior, but I'd have a very hard time taking her seriously. If your mom wants to enable this ridiculous behavior, that's her choice. But you don't owe your sister a new blankie. I mean, come on, you're not in the wrong. Next up, a couple of years ago, my older brother and I went to check out a house I was interested in buying. When we arrived at the property, he surprised me by saying that he wanted to buy it. Naturally, I was quite upset, as I had been genuinely interested in the house. To ease the tension, he suggested that we could go half and half on the property. In the end, neither of us ended up purchasing it, but I've regretted not going through with it ever since. What made the situation even more frustrating is that my brother already owns a house, while I've been renting this entire time. For context, he is my older brother, and I'm his younger sister by 10 years. Fast forward to now. I'm actively looking to buy a house again, but this time I didn't ask my brother to be my realtor. Apparently he took offense at my decision, though I didn't intend to upset him. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Most of the time, it's best not to mix business with family, and buying a house is one of the biggest purchases a person makes. You're leaving a lot of context out, but it sounds like he screwed you over out of the other house. He may also still feel like because he's the older brother, he gets a say in what happens. You're not in the wrong, and I wouldn't tell him anything about the homes that you are looking at in case he tries to buy it for himself. You're not in the wrong. He violated Realtor Code of Ethics, and you probably should have reported him. But you are definitely not in the wrong for refusing to use an unethical realtor. He made his bed. Let him lay in it. If he was actually any good at his job, he wouldn't care about one person unless he's trying to screw you over again. Don't use anyone in his office either. Use a firm that is not connected to him. Next up, my neighbor, a woman in her 40s, recently got 4 chickens. She claims they are emotional support animals that help her manage her anxiety. While I understand the need for emotional support, the chickens are incredibly noisy. They cluck and squawk constantly, starting before dawn and continuing throughout the day. I work from home, and the continuous noise has been unbearable. It's making it hard for me to concentrate, giving me headaches, and I've started feeling really frustrated and resentful. I initially approached my neighbor to discuss the issue politely, hoping we could find a solution. However, she was adamant that the chickens are essential for her well-being and refused to address the noise problem. Despite my best efforts to handle things peacefully, nothing changed. The noise continued, and my workdays became increasingly difficult. Eventually, I reached a breaking point and decided to call the non-emergency police line to report a noise violation. I didn't take this step lightly, but I felt it was necessary because the situation was negatively affecting my health and ability to work. After the call, my neighbor was furious. She accused me of being heartless and insensitive to her needs, labeling my actions as discriminatory. Update. After doing some research, I discovered that there is a city ordinance prohibiting chicken coops within 300 feet of a residential building, which her coop clearly violates. I plan to contact code enforcement tomorrow, and hopefully I'll finally be able to get some peace and maybe even an emotional support nap. Let's start judging. Maybe you're in the wrong. I've had plenty of chickens, and Elle don't recall the hens doing anything but cooing and clucking. They're actually very peaceful and sweet in my experience. The roosters were loud and obnoxious for the most part. If there's no ordinance against it, you might have to learn to live with it. Maybe go over and feed them, or ask if you can help collect eggs. Cops make everything worse. This support animal misuse needs to stop. Stop equating a seeing eye dog with an emotional support gecko. We all know it's being abused and it's causing problems for people with a legit need. Knock it off already. As someone with chickens, I call BS on this. Chickens don't yell all day long. They just don't. Not even roosters. Not even guinea fowl, who aren't chickens but are known for being loud. If you did, then you're in the wrong for exaggerating. Unless they are all roosters, I actually have a neighbor who harassed another neighbor by setting up a coop on the property line of about 10 roosters.